projection.
Welcome to Taking It Down. Again, it's the Southern-ish, analytical, lack of pretension podcast about pop culture. We have to be lack of pretension because we're so unprofessional. I am your host, Blaine Duncan. I'm also curious about why I like what I like and why Adam hates what he hates. To top it off, I'm also an English teacher, and I was once a kid who grew up in front of a television set, one of those big box ones with the wood and the... So maybe deep down, I'm still that kid. You'll get my analysis skills each week, but that's not all. You'll get our other host. We always have an erudite musician with a penchant for deep reading. That's going to be Adam. He'll be with us in a second. We usually have a media specialist / film buff with encyclopedic knowledge on a plethora of topics. That's Donovan, but he's not with us this week, so we can say awful things about him. For this episode of Taking It Down, we're at number 121. We're going to dole out some general thoughts on the newest and final part of the Jurassic trilogy, the most recent Jurassic stuff. It's called Jurassic World Dominion. We'll keep it spoiler-free for that. It's not garnering favorable reviews, so are the critics wrong? You can trust us. From there, we're going to discuss more specific, much more deeper, and much more spoiler-filled things related to the last 3 episodes of the Netflix show Stranger Things 4. What do we think of the setup for those July episodes to come? Do we have speculations about what's going to be happening in Hawkins and Nevada and beyond? Plus, we'll do some quick check-ins on Obi-Wan Kenobi, the debut of the more low-key coming-of-age Disney Plus series Ms. Marvel, and maybe even spare some time for the Challenge All-Stars. All that plus Listener of the Week. We can be your conversation starters for your summer parties, or, we can just be your pals. That's fine with me. It's not fine with Natalie, but it's fine with me. So, speaking of Natalie, here's our usual crew. She's taking the place of Donovan Reinwald. He's a man about town. He's not with us this week. Instead, let's just do you one better. This young lady's absolutely who you want to talk to when you find out you have superhero powers from putting on your grandmother's charm bracelet. It's Natalie Morrow.
Here I am. I did it. I'm better than Donovan.
Wearing your grandmother's charm bracelet.
God, if she hadn't lost them all, I might be.
And the other guy, he's here with us almost every week as well. He's definitely the person you want to call up, to email, to play your wedding this summer. It's summer. You're going to have a wedding. You need music. You need live music. You don't need a DJ. This is Adam Morrow.
It's great to be here, Blaine.
Oh, God. Not that shit.
I had to do it. I miss Donovan so much. But yeah, in this economy, shoot me a DM about playing your wedding.
And that'll have to cover gas. And what's your going rate? Is it like you go by the hour?
Yeah, $1,000 an hour.
Jesus.
Well, it's inflation, man. It's really not that much money.
That's real cheap.
Oh, that's just for me.
Let's get into the Done Up Real Good Listener of the Week. We're going to try to reserve a little time for the challenge this week, the Challenge All-Stars. We love their challenge, the 3 of us. Since Donovan's not with us, I think it's a good week to talk challenge stuff. We'll try to reserve some time for it. We're going to give the award, the Done Up Real Good Listener of the Week. Drum roll, if we need it. It's Mr. Ben Flanagan, and he will receive a coupon for a free and very pretend, yet very delicious dilly bar.
It makes it sound like the coupon is
coming.
Like the dilly bar is pretend.
The dilly bar is pretend.
It's real. It's a real thing.
Oh, no, is it? Oh. Yeah, oh, no, yeah, you're right. Fucking hey, I'm going to go get one after this. What are you talking about?
The way that you phrase it makes it sound like it's a coupon to go towards a dilly bar, and not just like for the whole price.
A free dilly bar.
Yeah, and instead of just like you get a free dilly bar, we looked it up. They cost $2.43.
Here's a 15% off coupon.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to mail the coupon. I'm mailing you an actual dilly bar. That's what we've decided to do. So, Ben, when you open up your mailbox and you have just goo.
Ants.
It's covered in ants. Yeah.
I did see a Jurassic this week. Now that we are on the cyber and we can talk about the Jurassic this week, Jurassic World: Dominion. Listener, if you don't know this, I'm going to let you in on a secret right now. We tried to record this podcast and then we failed miserably, and now we're trying again, and I'm going to run with the same fucking jokes.
I should say that we have gotten genuinely tickled at the dilly bar thing twice now.
Oh no, that's genuine laughter.
Yeah, they're roughly the same set of jokes, but Lord, dilly bar is so funny. All right, sorry, back to your summer blockbuster.
So I kind of know, I do know what Natalie thinks of the movie. And Natalie, I hope she doesn't mind me stepping on her toes a little. She is a very big Jurassic Park fan and a very big Jurassic World fan. Or she went into the theater, excited. We're going to find out, did she stay excited? The movie got bad reviews. I concur. This movie to me was like is if someone put a little bit of piss and a lot of shit and then blended it and put it in a dilly bar and let it melt. And then let ants come. No, it wasn't that bad, but Jesus Christ, it was a mess. That's what I'm getting at. It was a mess. It would be, okay, it's not like shit and piss. It would be like a melted dilly bar.
I love these movies. Like, give me the dumb action, weird animal, overgrown, whatever. And I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
This movie was real bad.
It was so bad.
I didn't even look at it. I knew it was going to get critical, like the ratings were going to be bad, because they always are for these kinds of movies. They're not supposed to be good. But they're supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be like, haha, this is funny. I'm enjoying this moment. And there was none of that.
If I'm not mistaken, Jurassic World, first of this trilogy with Chris Pratt when he came on board and Bryce Dallas Howard, it got favorable reviews because it was just fun and basically Jurassic Park redo. Yeah. And I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. And I think the critics were as well. I'm no critic, but let me tell you something. Even I could spot out that there were actors, specifically Sam Neill. I don't even know if he wanted to be there. His reactions were absolutely not right. So who did you put that on? Was that Sam Neill? Is that Colin, the director, Colin Trevorrow? I think
Colin
it rhymes with tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think I think I read recently that it rhymes with tomorrow, so it's Trevorrow. Yeah. I've been saying Trevorrow, but that's wrong. Is that Sam Neill just being like, "Fuck it, this is all I'm giving you," or is that Colin Trevorrow saying, "Oh, we took that take will do"?
I have a feeling that like Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, they were probably like, "We're in, it'll be fun. / you're paying me well for this, and I'll get to see my friends." Like, that, and I'm fine with that. Like, go do your thing. But I think that the script given to Sam Neill was they just took his lines from the first Jurassic Park and just like cut and pasted into reactions, just as like to say that this movie was heavy-handed on like winking at the audience is an understatement. Almost everything Sam Neill had to do was just something he did in the first movie. And I think, as an actor, how do you get excited and how do you really commit to that when you did it, I don't know, 30 years ago or however old that movie was?
29, you're right on the money. 29 years old movie. That's exactly what happened. And Sam Neill, I think Laura Dern did okay with what she had. I thought Goldblum did okay. Sometimes even his reactions were very bland, considering who he is. Right. Chris Pratt, I thought Chris Pratt was fine. He really did seem like he was trying. Bryce Dallas Howard, she's never exceptional. She might get there for me one day, but so what am I saying? The acting was really weird. Who's that on? The director, maybe? The actors, maybe? But I'm going to go ahead and put it on the director because there were other signs that pointed that this was a mishmash of bullshit. The motorcycle scene that everyone has seen in the commercial, so we're avoiding spoilers for the most part. Chris Pratt on a motorcycle riding through Malta, getting chased by raptors. The most exciting moment for that scene was when you saw it in the trailer.
Yeah, that whole sequence, really the entire movie, and this is not a spoiler, this is just bad editing or directing. How did that character suddenly end up there? When the last scene, they were halfway across town, and then again, I love a trashy movie. Like, give me the garbage movies. Mm-hmm. I will watch Rampage all summer if it's on TNT, and I'll enjoy it. But like the jump it cuts, and it was just like, oh, how convenient you found the guy who has the information for you.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people, a lot of audience members are very forgiving of this sort of thing, but when your movie's this bad, you can't be. This is not a spoiler, but Chris Pratt's in the middle of Malta. He's in trouble, and he just looks to his left, and boom, motorcycle.
Yeah, first person that Bryce Dallas Howard meets in Malta happens to be the pilot that they need to take them exactly where they need to go.
I want to talk about this pilot. Did that character work for you? You guys know how I am. If you're a regular listener, sometimes I don't get actors or actresses' names right. She was a new actress to this series. Did she work for you? Because the reason why I'm asking is she didn't for me.
I think that she did to me only because everybody else didn't. To me, she was the fresh air in the
I
entire
got
movie
you.
because she was the only new character.
And again, I'm blaming it more so on the director and not really the actress. I would have loved this movie if it would have just expanded on one thing. It could have rehashed its idea about science, the whole Frankenstein thing. It could have been an examination of nature versus man. It could have even said something about family with the little clone girl. It could have just been an exciting adventure. It did not do any of those things, but it tried to do all of those things.
Yeah, and then it picked a plot that is not even included in any of those statements and is not included in any of the trailers, so I feel like I can't even say what it is because it would be a spoiler. But it was stupid and everybody should be mad about it.
Hey, listeners, hit your 30-second ahead button if you want to avoid spoilers for Jurassic World Dominion. But the movie ended up being about checks notes.
Locust.
Oh, Locust.
Bugs. Movie about dinosaurs. Let's focus on the bugs.
And the character of Lewis Dodson was threw me off immediately because he looked so much like Tim Apple,
Yeah.
as Donald Trump so lovingly calls him, Tim Apple. That didn't really color my judgment of the. I do have a quibble that kind of colored my judgment. The dinosaurs looked better and more realistic in 1993 in Steven Spielberg's original.
There was like a weird combination of some of them were CGI, some of them were clearly the puppets. It's like,
And
you gotta pick one and stick with it because this is bad.
but even the puppets look kind of shitty.
Oh, they look terrible.
They look bad.
All of the baby dinosaurs look terrible.
Yep. So there was almost nothing working in this movie. I can't really think of just like one great thing. And I even read a short review recently that said the score was bad. And that's not anything I really picked up on my watch. I can't take credit for that, but wow. So my final conclusion, and then I'm going to let Natalie have the floor for her final thought, is if you like the Jurassic films, like really, really love them, you might be okay with it. If you like, or a movie kind of buff, or a story, or really into story or narrative, then don't waste your time.
Yeah, my review, summary, suggestion, whatever. If it's really hot on a Sunday afternoon and you can get those matinee prices and you just want some good popcorn and a cold soda, then go see a different movie.
You can't get Adam to play your wedding.
Still don't go. Just wait till it's on TNT, you guys.
That's it.
Don't waste your money on this one. Sorry.
Let's shift gears into something we do like. And we have been happy to talk about Stranger Things 4. We're going to talk about the last 3 episodes. Netflix's flagship show, and deservedly so. If you haven't watched those last 3 episodes, come back to our episode of Taking It Down when you've watched them. We're going to spoil the hell out of them. You know, we've yet to bring up that the Russian guard is a faceless man on this podcast.
Natalie spotted it pretty quickly. I was impressed. That was some eagle-eyed stuff from her.
He's a good actor. I liked him. He did fine work as a kind of generic Russian guard. He brought a little life to the role.
Yeah, that was good. That whole plot line was fine, right? You know, like as I was watching it, I thought, you know, if you told us during season 1 that a certain set of characters are going to be in Soviet Russia and flying from Alaska to get there, it would have been like, okay, this show clearly is going to go just completely off the rails, but it felt pretty earned the whole time.
It's a good point. I wasn't crazy necessarily about the Hopper story as a whole, I'm going to get around to this a little bit more in depth, but I do think that his backstory of mixing Agent Orange and then the subsequent brief flashback with his kid and wife, I found that to be I thought that to be effective and sad. Up to that point, I hadn't cared about his storyline being in Russia because I know where it's going. I know he's going to get out. I know he's going to meet up with Joyce. But they were also kind of treating him like a superhero. He would just break his own ankles and then run.
Barefoot through the snow.
The evolution of Steve into a likable yet still being consistent that he's still Steve, that is an impressive feat. Steve never really changes who he is, but yet you end up liking him.
He kind of has to change a little bit because he's a pretty shitty dude in the first season, right?
Yeah.
I mean, by the end of it, he has a redemptive arc, but episode 1, season 1 to now is night and day. He's one of the most likable folks on the show. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, nothing bad's going to happen to him. There's some speculation out there that Steve could have been. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're getting straight into spoilers, right?
Oh yeah, we have been in the spoilers.
His attack in the Upside Down, the fact that he was bitten, blood was drawn.
The Will and Mike scene, if I'm not mistaken, it's in the 5th episode, got me a new word under my belt: queer baiting. Have you heard of this?
Please tell me more.
Okay. And Natalie, you're nodding. Do you know?
Yeah.
The queer baiting term? It's where you kind of promise the idea of queer or gay relationships in your show, movie, whatever, only to pull the rug out from your audience. You draw them in, but that doesn't really happen.
An unfulfilled Chekhov's gun, if you will.
Yep. Just to say you have checked the box of, oh, well, we've got gay characters, but then we'd never do anything that's not even fulfilled, really.
Which is funny that that's a conversation when we have, what's her name? Robin.
Homeboy Jason's Bible quoting. Do you guys remember this scene? There was a literal Bible quote in this show, which I didn't expect ever. But but the thing with that is, I thought that really got to the heart of what was true about the satanic panic of the 80s.
You pointed that out in maybe our first week of talking about this, that they were going to lean into that, and that had been, you go back through the first season, had so much nostalgia, and then they like built the mall, and they're kind of checking all these boxes, and that they decided to go with the satanic panic is a great idea for the show, I think. That scene was definitely maybe informed by the last few years of American culture as much as the 80s, which are not dissimilar, but they've really crafted their ability to create like a minor bad every season. It's very good. It's very well-tuned, well-developed.
Give me your thoughts on when they switched to the small, younger version of 11, when Millie Bobby Brown's shown as smaller or tinier.
Why are you smiling, Nat? Do you know how they did it?
Kind of, but it's just like that weird uncanny valley. It's very off-putting. But yeah, so they have like their little stand-in actor who's just a tiny little person, and then they put the dots on her face, like they do for all that stuff.
I mean, it was great. I couldn't see where one began and the other ended.
Obviously, we're going to get to the end and the creation of Vecna and all that, but they really seem like there was a wide net for this story when the season started. Maybe so much so that at least I had issues with it when we first talked about it. But as things got tighter and tighter, all these disparate storylines, especially 11's, seemed to come together. And 11 can be frustrating to me, to the action, both as a character, like when I'm completely engaged and in universe, if you will, and thinking about her dealing with her trauma and that being such a thing that, not to discount what they're representing on the show, but like there's also people that she needs to help that are experiencing just as real trauma as she's like working through her therapy, and you kind of want to be like, I get it, but like, come on, move along. So there's that frustration with her, but there's also occasionally it can be a bit of, I may get stared daggers through for saying this in front of Natalie, but the Two Towers-esque, where maybe you have the fate of Rohan being decided, but also Frodo and Sam walking in a field. You know, like when they flash to 11, you're kind of like, come on, let's get back to the good stuff, because some of that did feel a little redundant. But by the end of episode 7, I thought everything was a puzzle that needed to be there, you know, and I think they did a really nice job. And I think it's going to reward the Reddit dorks over the next few weeks who want to dive into all these details where, and I think I mentioned this last time we talked about this, maybe all of the history of the show has not always been super, the history of the show hasn't always given like super tangible theory creation material, you know, because if they need something to work for the story, they kind of just invent rules. You know, it seems like the board is set now in a very concrete way, at least through the end of this season, and there's a lot of possibility.
So I think you've got a little bit more beef with 11 than I do. I find her mostly engaging.
I think it's interesting that Adam used the Two Towers to describe his feelings about that, because I kind of had that feeling about like the Hopper story, like really any of them, where like you get it, you're like, ugh, these people again. Then you get into it just to the point where then they move on to somebody else. So there's nobody that I'm like, I guess it's all interesting, but there's always just a very jarring switch between every time they switch focus. So it takes me a minute to like, okay, now we're in on this storyline.
Is this the first season that these parents have realized that their children are out there in some deep shit?
Yeah. I mean, I asked last week why they don't. I mean, it's obvious why they don't, but like, send out a memo that some weird shit's been going on. You know, you can keep your kids at least kind of out of danger, or if weird things start happening, you don't think it's like somehow let the senior captain of the basketball team lead a witch hunt.
Yeah. What's this show saying that all of the entrances to the Upside Down look like vaginas?
I think you know what they're saying. That the Duffer Brothers are virgins, I guess.
Did anyone else recollect Buster Bluth when it comes to 11's story?
In what way? Must be seen and not heard, or not never seen or heard. What's the Milton man?
I feel like there's been more than one occasion where she says, "I'm a monster. I'm just a monster."
Oh, yes. Post-Seal Buster.
Do we feel sorry for Jonathan? Who, oh, by the way, wasn't even in the last episode?
Yeah, I noticed that they weren't around for that episode. But no, why would we feel sorry for him?
Well, Nancy doesn't dig him anymore. And he might not dig her
That's
anymore.
A mutual... They're fine. They're fine with not being together anymore. I don't feel bad for either of them.
Okay.
Just some people growing up and growing apart.
Do you still like Jonathan? That might be a good question.
Yeah. I think he's got like his whole like, why aren't you gonna go to college with Nancy? It's like he feels responsible to be there for his brother and be there for his mom. It's like he's doing his things, the things that are best for him to do. He's a good dude.
I thought it was good that one of the lasting impacts of season 1, they didn't just move on, specifically that set of folks, that he still does feel, even though his brother has grown up a bit, that he's still a protective guy, that he can't fully move on in that way. Thought that was a nice, not that it's overly subtle, but it's a nice touch.
Yeah. So let's get into this final episode a lot. I thought it was fantastic in that it ratcheted up tension very well.
Yeah, the slow build and the slow, not even just the reveal of who Vecna is, how Vecna was created, but the way that, again, you know, I was bitching about 11's storyline earlier, but the slow reveal of what really went down in kind of her fragmented memory and why she's like repressed all these different things, the tension of that escape attempt, everything that happened there, to say nothing of what's happening in, you know, quote unquote present day storyline. I thought all that was great. It was a page turner, a must. Getting into 7, we're like, we have to keep on watching. They did the full on binge flex that the show's known for.
Was it a little trite to have Vecna monologue his backstory?
Yeah, a little bit. It's a little. Why do villains explain the rules?
Right.
You know, or their backstories or whatever. Maybe it's because he was a lonely kid. You know, I don't know. Maybe there's character reasons.
Well, speaking of character,
Did you find it trite, I guess?
yeah, that was one of my few critiques of that final episode. That was just a little overdone. That's been done. But it does remind me of a question I absolutely have to ask the two of you. Did Victor Creel, Robert Englund as the older version, did he and his family literally burn babies?
That was a callback to he had been in the military, right? And it's something they had to. Don't they mention that he had to destroy a building, like they were in France or something? Or am I
Yeah.
making this up? That once he entered the building, he realized. Once he actually entered the building, he realized, oh my God, there was this family in here. This baby is the trick of him discovering, of the soon-to-be Vecna discovering what's lurking in adults' minds, and that being the thing that broke him, was I thought a really nice touch. That it wasn't just like kind of like an incel background where like nobody gets me and I have this strange power that, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't just like, and especially with, the way that the first episode opens, coming right on the heels of just a horrific point in American history of yet another school shooting, and now you have this character at the end who kind of sounds like every background profile of every school shooter you've read, but that extra flourish by the writers to say that a kid with the ability to look in adults' minds and find out that they don't have everything together, or they have their own horrifying histories, that it would kind of fry a child's brain. That's pretty good. That's pretty good writing.
It really does fit the motif that we discussed last week, that adulthood is really the ultimate big bad of the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did either of you unfortunately get spoiled on one or Vecna's identity?
I did. Just by one of my student workers said that they hadn't even watched the episode yet, and she had mentioned that she had looked at the IMDb page and saw the casting. I was like, son of a bitch. But it didn't ruin it to me.
No, it didn't. I too was spoiled. I don't know what it is with these goddamn pop culture websites that put their shit right in the headlines that anyone with common sense can deduce as a spoiler. That's one thing we will never do at the Alabama Take. We will never put something in the headline that you can figure out very quickly as a spoiler. They think they're working around it by saying just witty shit, but it's like if you're 3 episodes in, you can figure out exactly what they're talking about. Or the worst of the guilty parties are the ones that say, "Can you believe redacted dies?" And you're like, I can figure this, like when it's really obvious. Anyway, there were these nice small nods within the show, so kind of having it spoiled, you got to see a few of those. You got to see them play out in real time rather than waiting and having to recollect. So that was okay, I guess, but goddamn culture websites. That's why we have the Alabama Take.
I think the reveal of old dude being Vecna, the way that like the whole episode, like the monologuing, we've all got it at this point, but they're still going to keep talking about, describing it and explaining it. I think that made the fact that it was spoiled for me like not that big of a deal, because it wasn't like shock ending screen or credit roll,
I would be really interested to go back and watch. Like I've seen some screen grabs from the 7th episode and maybe a few others, like say like the pipe when 1 is showing 11. You can crawl away here, but I can't fit. There's parallels to season 1 there, like almost frame to frame kind of stuff. I would be interested to see how tight they were with setting that stuff up, or more appropriately calling it back. If they had a long plan, or if they're just kind of riffing on their own mythology at this point. But it would be cool to see that there was a bigger plan all along for this show, when it could kind of feel episodic by season, like a new boss pops up and they defeat it, and then there's the illusion that everything went back to normal between seasons and that they were allowed to be kids for a little bit, but obviously there was a whole series of things happening that are tied together.
Either one's impressive. Did they plan it out? That would be awesome. If they go back and just pick up on some of the things they did and, like you said, riff on it, that's still really cool.
That's great, yeah.
I thought the actor who plays Vecna in human form, he did a pretty good job because he's having to walk this line of being appealing for a few episodes but also being suspicious and then turning it on 11. So I was in the boat.
He gets the Tom Riddle Award.
I've got to admit, I'd planned on coming to today's podcast to make a Barb joke, and the show did it for me.
They beat you to it. Beat you to the punch.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of questions about, I'm not even going to attempt to articulate it, but some of the questions raised by time not working the same way in the Upside Down. Like, who created the Upside Down? Did his memory create it somehow? Or it'll be, that's where the real gold mine is for the theory dorks right now.
As well as the thematic dorks like me, because if you're saying that will or a memory, or that the fact that the Upside Down is always in the past, then that's definitely something I'm interested in on a deeper level. This idea that nostalgia is very seductive but trapping, or something along those lines.
I mean, I'm sure it will also factor into, since there seems to be a one-to-one from the real world to the Upside Down of like, let's go get this gun, or let's go get this bike, or let's go get whatever. I'm sure that will continue to come up. Again, it's funny that they employ strict rules there in this kind of making it up as they go reality.
Let's do a quick go around the table. Who's aged the most? Yeah, which actor looks way older because of obvious years happening?
I think you should go first so we don't scoop you. I feel like you have an answer.
The guy who plays Lucas Sinclair looks incredibly older than the rest of the kids now.
Yeah, that's tough to beat. I think Nance also has, not that she looks that much older than the older crew, but she went from definitely pulling off high school student to now just looks like a 20-something-year-old going about her business.
I'm going with, and this isn't totally fair because he wasn't in the other seasons, but the Hellfire Club guy who just looks like he's 47.
Eddie Munson.
Yeah.
He really does. No, that's a fair one to take, because I thought the same thing, especially in his first episode.
Yeah.
I just thought, well, this guy's but he's supposed to be a little older. He's failed.
So he's supposed to be 19.
His senior year a couple times. Yeah, he's 19 or 20. Yeah.
That's just so, like, I think the actor himself is really talented and is doing a great job. Mm-hmm. But it was just an odd choice for them to pick somebody that just visibly looks so much older than everybody else.
That old dude's going to play some guitar to save the world. Get ready.
Just like Adam does at every wedding. And with that, we're going to take our break. So here in our break, we do not have advertising. We just like to keep you up to date on what's happening on the AlabamaTake.com and any of our family of shows. There's plenty to update this week. If you want to be a part of the Alabama Take at all, in any form, writer, podcaster, producer, both, all, send me an email to thealabamaTake@gmail.com. We try our best to be a welcoming crew. We are very interested in new ideas, so send those over and we'll see if they work, if they fit with what we want to do. Speaking of new ideas, the newest podcast, Alabama Slam, can be found on the site or any app that you get podcasts from every Friday morning. Alabama Slam is Corey Hanna, avid wrestling fan, and Patrick Akers, wrestling analyst and former wrestler himself. So you're getting some grade A thoughts on mainly AEW. So check that out on our site or in your podcast app or both. And we are working to get an audio version of it on our YouTube channel every Friday as well. With the YouTube channel in discussion, you can certainly search for the Alabama Take on YouTube, find it, subscribe, because coming at the end of June is the second season of our little talk show, Short Takes. And you can go back and watch any episode of those from season 1. Coming soon is the 3rd season of This Song Sucks, where hosts Josh Kavanaugh and Hayden Crawford give you bad songs. They give you your thoughts on bad songs. Here's the cool thing about This Song Sucks, though. I usually joke about this show because of the hosts. I'll be earnest this week. The name kind of says it all, but they are 2 legitimate musicians who can dissect exactly why a song is not good. So it kind of weaves that esoteric, knowledgeable information with some comedy. You'll enjoy it, and you'll get something out of it. So check out their show. If you're thinking, oh, that's way too much, look, I get it. Stay tuned by following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and that way you don't have to kind of keep up with it. You'll see it. You'll know to go visit the site when new things are happening. Let's get back into our second part. Let's talk briefly about some things. The next 3 things we'll try to keep it kind of short, and for reasons that you'll see, one of which is that Ms. Marvel only has 1 episode. Let's start there. Disney Plus debuted this show. It's new to Disney Plus, but of course to the MCU. If you know anything about Ms. Marvel, she's kind of sort of a new character even in the comic books themselves. New character played by Iman Vellani, and that's who plays Ms. Marvel. I think we'll be spoiling this, so in case you haven't watched that first episode, there's only the one. I don't think we could talk about it without spoiling it because of that. I want to start with Natalie, because you are the biggest MCU fan of all of our hosts here on Taking It Down. You sent me a text that you said, are we going to, is this something we want to talk about? And truthfully, I wasn't even thinking about watching it, at least not on this weekend. What did you find so appealing about it?
I don't know. I think it was really, I honestly didn't even realize that it had been released yet until, I guess, Friday afternoon. I started seeing reviews coming in, and they were pretty negative, at least the ones that I was kind of just seeing the headlines on. So I was like, this doesn't make sense. So I wanted to make sure that I saw it, and because I really enjoyed the comic. I think the comic book is really good. But it just seems like the reviews for it, it's not fair what people are comparing it to, I think. You were basically comparing it to a bunch of, most of the MCU, let's be honest, was directed toward like folks in the millennial age group. And now we've got something that's probably more Gen Z. And I thought it was really refreshing and really fun. It was so bright and colorful, even though it was mostly at nighttime. And it was funny and lighthearted, and I really enjoyed it. And I didn't think that the reviews were very fair. So I wanted to make sure you saw it and get your opinion.
I had my doubts going in because of 2 reasons that have nothing to do with the show. It has a lot more to do with maybe me losing some interest with the MCU. I felt like this phase of the MCU has been aimless, and I felt as though Miss Marvel's powers, the best I can say is they look rather stupid.
Sure.
Like the stretchy arm, huge hand. That's all I kind of knew about her. But especially after your text, I wanted to give it a try. But you said it well. It's refreshing. It's got a lively spirit. There's a line in the show that Kamala Khan she says, she's the character, where she says, Thor is secretly a gamer. And it's just that little line by itself in isolation kind of succinctly says that this is going to be a silly kind of fun show. And I'm excited because you pair that with how her daydreams become animated at times or kind of fleshed out in some sort of animatronic way. It's just it's a breezy show. That's what I loved about it. It was a fast 45-minute, hang.
Yeah, and that's a lot how in the comic, obviously some things are a little bit different. Her powers are a little bit different, but eventually they do tackle, like, the bad guys are still legitimate MCU or Marvel bad guys. But so I wonder how that's gonna play out. But just this episode where the main conflict was just with her parents, like, I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
Kudos to casting, because Iman Vellani was one of the warmest and most inviting young actresses I've seen, since Stranger Things, I guess, years ago when it first debuted. You just really want to root for her immediately. and her family as well. They are kind of the antagonist for most of the episode, but they're not because they're cruel or evil. They're actually quite. You just love them as well.
Yeah.
I felt bad about the dad when he bust in as Hulk.
Did you have like, this is going to be you and Andy dressing in matching Hulk costumes one day?
I did that, and there was a very slight nod in my head to Tobias as the Blue Man.
Yeah.
My biggest concern, though, going forward, is that this is the perfect show, obviously, to examine Muslim American life and what that means in our world, in the real world, and in a superhero world. But I'm a little scared it won't dig into that. You know, Marvel has this tendency to proffer up this bigger idea that they could really examine, but they don't, or they just don't get as deep as they could.
Yeah, and that is a pretty big part of the comic. And they've already kind of hinted at some things that I think they're going to keep exploring that a little bit. And I also think that the actress, Iman, is that her name?
Iman Vellani, I think, is the correct pronunciation.
From what I understand, she has been pretty vocal in like meetings with Feige and all these things. So I think if there were something that wasn't true to her experience, I think she would speak up about it and change it.
That's promising. And it's well done. I don't think Adam's watched this, but there's this nice cinematic shot where they have this Alexa device, and it is dividing the parents. And then sometimes the edit will go to her standing in between the parents, and it's this nice little nod to there's division in the house on what she wants to do versus what they want her to do. But it still maintains a certain sense of playfulness. It's really cool. There's a lot of thoughts and nods to mirrors and clothing and identity, all in that. There's been some thought put into this, and it's really cool. It's almost like, not that Moon Knight was bad, but this is like the anti-Moon Knight, where it's not nearly as dark or menacing.
Also, did you just call it Alexis?
What did I, Alexa? I don't
that's
have one.
It just sounds like something a dad would say. What's that Alexis?
Jesus. Well, I am.
Sorry.
I am. On the show, it's called Zuzu. So.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I do have a very strong critique. There were way too many girls on that basketball court when she got hit in the face with the basketball.
What is that supposed to mean?
It was no wonder she got hit in the face. She was just like...
They're just running drills.
They were running 13 players. Yeah, okay, fair. Okay,
it was just PE class.
Was AvengerCon a little small for the Avengers to be so big in their world?
It was the first one. So it's the first
But it would look like it was
AvengerCon.
happening in somebody's garage.
Didn't they say it was they said where it was, and it was like there was a reason why it was there. I can't remember though.
Okay. The guy at the end who's in the office, and of course, if there's going to be a guy in the office per the contract, he has to be making a cup of coffee. He's actually the same detective person interviewing Peter over the possibility of murdering Mysterio at the end of No Way Home, or beginning of No Way. Yeah. Okay, well, let's keep it Disney Plus. We haven't had Natalie's thoughts on Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're also a big Star Wars fan, as we all are here. How are you feeling? We're through part 4 now of Obi-Wan. How are you?
I love it. I was not expecting the Obi-Wan Leia storyline that is now what it is, and I'm so into it. I think that little girl is so talented. I think this last episode was so good. That's my review. Is Natalie hearts it?
No, I love it because a lot of sites are calling that the switcheroo. Like they were alluding to a promise of Obi-Wan Luke, but no, it's Obi-Wan Leia.
Which makes so much sense for how the entire what's A New Hope? Is that the first one?
Yeah.
Like that, it makes sense that Leia knows Obi-Wan and Luke doesn't.
It adds up. I mean, you assume she knew Obi-Wan because of her father. But now you see, no, she's actually had contact with him and he's helped her before. So, yeah, I'm with you. It feels good. How are you about Reva, the third sister?
I don't understand why there's so much, like, anger and debate about this character or this actress or whatever. I've just been ignoring it all because I'm just assuming people are being racist and sexist because that's
They
typically
are.
how it goes.
Say
They
you
are.
you do understand why.
Yeah, okay. Well, then I've not been reading it. I've not because I think it's great. I think it's a compelling character for a Star Wars character. And I don't understand. People are terrible.
Outside of the racist and sexist stuff, there's the theory that she could be a former Padawan who resented being taken away from her family, and that sort of.
There seem to be some cracks indicating that in the last episode, because obviously there's questions about if there's, if you watch A New Hope, you think, or even on into Empire Strikes Back, you're thinking like, okay, well, there's Darth Vader, Obi-Wan's dead, we got Yoda, so there's like 3 or 4 people in the entire galaxy or universe that have Jedi powers. And all of a sudden you're seeing folks in this interim phase who can do Force stuff. So I definitely had questions about when it started and there were people with lightsaber-esque devices and the ability to use the Force. It was a little, as someone who is not engaged with much of the universe outside of the films and now these TV shows, I mean, I'm sure this is all answered in all the books and the animated series and stuff, but the slow reveal of her character, if there's any critique, it's that she just comes in so angry immediately, like one-dimensionally so.
Yes.
Which is a writing problem. It's not an acting problem. As she's more fully fleshed out, like I thought her scenes with young Leia were really good this week.
I've always been curious since the Phantom Menace, like, why do they have to be cut off from their moms and dads? That seems really harsh. So if they go in that direction to provide us some more information, that really does provide the third sister character some ethos. It's for her actions, or it could.
Even Obi-Wan has some lines where he says, "I think I remember a brother. I hope he's doing well."
That's some painful shit.
It is, but I mean, they do lay it out, even in the original films, that they can have no connections, material or family or anything, in order to be more in tune with the Force, I guess. But they're just trying to create the most monastic set of circumstances possible. But yeah, it's a bit cruel to put the younglings through that, and then to throw them in some amber this week. How about that?
This show really wants you to watch the animated series. And I'll say that Obi-Wan Kenobi show makes me want to watch the animated series more so than any others.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so here's a question. It's a disturbing one. What sort of torture were they going to do with young Leia? I'm always curious with what they were trying to do with Han in the Empire when he screams, and yet he goes back to Chewbacca with no scratches. Like, what kind of torture are they doing?
Some stuff moving towards her head, right? They look like giant needles or screwdrivers or something. Maybe there's some electricity that's going to come from those. I don't know. They did a nice job of not answering that question, I thought. There was some disturbing scenes this week.
One of the big legitimate problems I think some people online are having with Reva is that Vader takes a little bit more than, uncharacteristically takes more from her than maybe he should. Again, that would be a writing thing and not anything any of the actors are doing, but does he? I mean, would Vader not have just killed her and then used the tracking device that she talked about?
Yeah, the thing that I wondered about there, because he even comes in angry, right? Like he's physically, you can tell that he's pissed, which is not something that he really does later. It's a disturbing calmness to his cruelty that was lacking, but maybe he's just coming into his own as Darth Vader. You know what I mean? Maybe that can excuse some of it, that he hasn't quite figured out how to be that personality. But I agree that her getting the second chance, she got let off the hook this week.
So Vader's still young.
Yeah. I mean, he is still youngish, right? I mean, the kids are 10 now, right?
I'll admit, man, the hand-holding between Ben Kenobi and little Leia I found to be very poignant. This show isn't Better Call Saul, but it is something of a prequel that can deepen scenes from A New Hope and Empire, like Natalie was talking about. You know, the attempt to rescue Leia in A New Hope, that wasn't the beginning. And that little her reaching for his hand, I thought was an incredibly sweet moment that wouldn't work with a different actress.
Yeah, she's really good. And, I think we talked last week about how some of those lines, the "You're my only hope" from A New Hope, and even now, her saying that in the film being called A New Hope, that he created or helped to foster Luke to become that. But, he finally got to be a badass this week. The lightsaber came out instead of him trying to hide and use a blaster or just sneak around or whatever. And he had a pretty high body count this week. He kind of I've been waiting on him to really flex. Of course she trusts him. She saw all that.
That's good.
Did you guys kind of wish that when he flooded that hallway with all the stormtroopers, the stormtroopers are already floating by the time they go by the window? Those guys drowned really quick. If they had wanted to just up the horror level just a little bit, that would have been kind of fun. I mean, these guys are already cannon fodder, Why not lean into it?
That's a good note. Let's bring it back to reality in more than one way. We got the Challenge All-Stars. All three of us big fans. Natalie's ears perk whenever we say challenge. I got to ask the two of you, because I'm hoping you can help explain. What's the upcoming thing on CBS? What the hell's that about? Why is it I get why it's on CBS.
I've never been more uninterested in a challenge before.
Yeah, I think that's where I am too.
I don't want to watch. I'm not excited. I'm probably not going to watch it.
I had a really weird response where I think I was watching 60 Minutes on CBS, and then fast forwarding through commercials, and I see TJ, and I was like, wait, what? And I hit play. It kind of blew my mind. But yeah, All-Stars though. This current season, Beth quitting twice in one season. Is she the lamest All-Star ever?
Yeah, this should be the end of Beth. No more Beth.
She's doing exactly what they bring her in to do. But she's playing her role. She's a role player, She's the sixth man of the year, if you will.
No more Beth. Over it.
Yeah, don't bring her back. She's not going to try. She's just, ugh. Would either of you fake an injury for competitive edge?
Are you saying that MJ faked it? He exaggerates it for sure.
He exaggerated it.
But
I don't think he faked
hurt,
it.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But he's just like, I'm just going to really play out this. Has he been treated fairly? Because he's been sabotaged 3 times in a row, and eventually gets him into elimination.
I understand the strategy of once you say somebody's name once, just keep saying it, because at least you're not going to piss anybody new off. Whenever things are kind of manufactured in the show, why Brad didn't maybe have a strong reason for going after him at first, and then slowly convinced himself that they had beef. I don't know. Maybe I'm not remembering that right, but that it makes no sense.
Yeah, Brad is just a terrible guy.
MJ and John A, they just had a rough season. I don't know. We obviously don't know where it ends for John A, but man, the sabotage, the accusations, it's tough times in the house. Tough to be the champ.
It kills me how people gripe in their confessionals saying that it's self-preservation. He's just trying to preserve himself. It's like, well, do you know how this show works? But this most recent episode of All-Stars, I was angry all the way through it. No explanation on why they disliked MJ other than he won last season. I'm with Natalie. Brad just is back to his dickish ways, I think. He used to be really bad about this when he was young, and then his first season or two of All-Stars, he wasn't too horrible in my opinion. He's back. Not a fan.
Interesting how much one of the guys last season who was very guilty of this, Nehemiah, me and Natalie talked about while watching the episode, and Nehemiah even said, it's like I'm not even here. He stirred so much up last season. Wasn't it Brad that he was so angry at one point? Who was he big time beefing with?
I don't remember, because at one point he wears a Brad, he puts a weave on his face to support Brad in an elimination.
But then doesn't he get angry at him the very next week or something like that?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah. I just remember the night that they're all out, and like Nehemiah is just like fuming at a table and like staring somebody down. I don't know if he like watched it back, once he got home. I was like, man, I can't be that guy again. But he has really taken the opposite approach of Brad. Like, I'm just gonna chill and step back.
Yeah, and I've always got the impression that Nehemiah was an okay guy. So that very well could have happened where he went home, watched it, and was like, oh, that's not me usually, which is cool because I kind of want to pull for him a lot of times.
Yeah.
I'm as big of a MJ fan as I can be. To me, he's as popular to me as CT. He's like the second person I would pull for of all time. I don't know, maybe because he's an SEC guy, Vandy guy, I don't know. But who are you rooting for now that the season's about halfway over?
It's got to be Wes. I mean, now that MJ is gone, now that like the good guy's gone, you just pick the guy that's gonna like fuck everybody else's shit up because screw them because they've all been terrible. And if Brad wins, it's gonna be so bad. I hate Brad. Brad and Beth, no more. Let's just stop inviting them back. They bring drama, yes, but not the right kind of drama.
What about on the female side, Natalie? Who are you pulling for?
I mean, John A. I would love to see John A. win. As much as I hate to say it, I wouldn't mind it if Naya. Although, I don't know if we've talked about this. Should Naya even be there? She's never run a final. She got kicked out before her only final that she made it to.
But she technically made it.
I guess, but it's just question mark there.
I think that they brought her on so that they could bring Jordan on, right? I mean, that seems to be the main, to have them do that co-talking head where they talked about growing as people and how, they've been on the show basically since they were kids and all that stuff. I'm with you. I like Naya now, and it's fun to see to remember her and to see, she's changed and she's chill, but probably still has a switch somewhere that she could just go crazy. Her, John A. I'm kind of rooting for Kellyanne. Kellyanne's had her back against the wall the whole time and seems to be a kind person, so it would be cool to see her do well.
I think for me now, I'm rooting for Bananas because he's been in the trailers. He's coming back, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's end this week's episode right there. Next week, one topic we're definitely going to discuss will be the entirety of the HBO series Barry. As for what else, we'll let you know on social media, all across the internet. What a time to be alive. Tell people things and they know it. We'll talk to everybody next Tuesday.